Welcome to another episode of Witty CFB. Your host Rob Sheply here, and on today's episode, we're running back BYU football because we had a lot of good positive feedback, and my new friend Mark Parrish decided to come on, and we're going to talk BYU football again. We'll talk about the quarterback battle, offense, defense, and just general expectations of what we're going to see from this Cougar football program. Mark, it's great to have you on, and I've been looking forward to this for about a week or two now to kind of run this back and talk more about BYU.
Yeah, Rob, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm simple, just a big fan of the BYU Cougars and have been for a long time. So, and I thanks for having me. I reached out to you there after you did your last BYU hit there, and I was impressed by what you did. And the BYU community is an amazing community. They will love you up. And so, and then I just kind of wanted to reach out to you and give you the perspective of a little bit out here in the mountains. And if I can help bring some understanding to BYU football or BYU, that'd be great. And I don't do this professionally as far as commenting on sports. So hopefully folks have a little bit of grace with me. But I do love my Cougars, and I'm happy to talk about them. And whenever I can, I will. So I'll take this chance, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what this is for. And two, I mean, the one thing I've admired about BYU fans so far is they're definitely not afraid to tell their opinion, but also they've been pretty supportive on this channel, even when I've talked about Utah as well. Those are some of those videos that I get pretty good feedback and reaction on too. So I appreciate all you BYU fans out there who have been checking out the channel. It's definitely appreciated.
Yeah, I'm one of the interesting fans. There's actually quite a few of us, I think, but I'm one of the. I don't know if I should out myself right here on this, but I'm a Utah grad because I lived in the Salt Lake City area, high school, and graduated from down there in the Hillcrest and Midville area. But I'm a Utah grad, but I'm a true blue BYU fan. But I do cheer for Utah if they're not playing BYU in my sports. I think it's better frankly, I've always thought it's better for BYU if Utah's great, and then we just get to smack them in the mouth every year. So I'd rather have Utah ranked first in the country and have us go and beat them, and then we would be. I do cheer on the Utes, but I am a BYU fan. But I will root for the Utes. But I have lots of family members who are Utah fans, and straight Utah. And then when that rivalry, when the Holy War comes around, we have some chats, I guess.
Yeah, that's still one of those games for me. Even though I live in Florida, I'll still stay up at 10:30 Eastern time because I know every single year it's always going to be a super competitive game, and just the culture, the atmosphere, everything in general, at least for me, it just makes it really exciting to watch. So, I mean, with that said, I mean, BYU's coming off a 11-2 year. They won the Alamo Bowl this coming year, tied for first place in the Big 12, and you look at this 2025 roster, and I think for the most part, there's a lot to be excited about, but I think obviously the elephant in the room is the quarterback battle, which right now is kind of a three-way battle. So, Mark, where do you kind of see this quarterback battle going right now, and what have other BYU fans have kind of told you as well in terms of what direction you think Sitake and the staff is going to go?
It sounds like it's wide open. From people that I respect and listen to, and I think that they know what they're talking about. I think it's McKay Hillstead's to win or to lose at this point in time. So McKay Hillstead played at University Utah State for a season. Got beat up real good when he was a true freshman, but he played and he showed some flashes of stuff you'd want to see from a quarterback. Aaron Roderick loves the dual threat quarterback, and McKay Hillstead is that. He was a track star in high school. He ran a 10.8 his junior year. Probably would have won the state 100 his senior year, but he didn't run track. So he's fast, he's quick, and he's got a very solid arm. I'm hoping his decision making is good, but that's where I'd bet currently. So McKay Hillstead, I think, is the leader in a lot of people's minds. But I hear people, they'll say Trace Bourget and they'll say Bear Bachmeier are also legit. I almost hear almost as many people say each thing. Now, I will say something about Bear Bachmeier. He's a heck of a talent, man, it is tough to start major college football as a true freshman. I mean, I don't see it. My concern with Bachmeier is if we're starting Bachmeier, and that's the royal we of BYU.
Yeah.
But if we're starting Bachmeier, we're in trouble. I think that's going to be we better let's get this kid some experience, and we might take an extra few L's on the on the schedule. And that's not what I don't think that's how BYU is built this season. BYU is built to win now, is to win this year, and they had a lot of guys come back who could have possibly been drafted that are kind of taking a chance to up their draft stock, but to also take a chance on having a really solid year, a really, really good year, and getting into that Big 12 championship and hopefully getting to the playoff. That's their expectation. And if BYU starting a true freshman, unless Hillstead and Bourget have both gotten injured and they're having to start their 2 or 3 or 4 games into the year, that's the case. I see him starting. I hope maybe he'll just be Favis and one of those amazing freshmen, But if Manning can't start down there at Texas his first year or two in the program because he's young and he's learning, I have a hard time seeing a true freshman pick up that offense of Aaron Roderick, or they're going to have to dumb that offense way back. But I think sorry, I'm talking a lot here on these two guys, but I think that McKay Hillstead and Trayson Bourget can be good enough, and that's all BYU needs in that quarterback this year. They need a guy who won't throw a bunch of picks, takes the dump off, takes the safe throw when he needs to, throw it away, and frankly hand it off to the running back room and let the offensive line do their work. So as far as the quarterback battle goes, I think Hillstead is the current leader. We'll see how fall camp goes. And I think Trayson Bourget is kind of right there with him. I think Bear Bachmeier is the most talented. From what I've heard, Bear Bachmeier is the most talented quarterback in that room. He's a 4-star recruit, and his brother came over with him, Tiger. And he's very, very good. And I think he'll be very, very, very good at BYU. But he didn't have spring ball. He's had the summer, and there's been some, with everything going on with Retzlaff, there's been some questions, things like that. So I think that a fall camp and then trying to start him would be rough.
Yeah, because, especially with the transfer portal now, it almost feels obsolete to start a freshman now because, at least when I first started watching college football, hey, if you were a 4 or 5-star recruit, there was a pretty strong possibility if that quarterback room wasn't very strong that you could possibly start as a freshman. And, we talked about this off camera too about, BYU kind of needing quote unquote game manager. And I've said it on the show multiple times how some people take game manager as an insult. But for me, game manager means hey, somebody who makes the right reads, somebody who gets out of trouble, and most importantly, doesn't turn the ball over, especially when you have one of the top defenses, at least statistically speaking, last year in the entire country too. And, with that said, we talked about the quarterback room now, and at least to me, when I look at this offense, there's a lot of talent. For example, I think of, Chase Roberts, who should be their top target on the outside. I think of Parker Kingston, who I think is going to be maybe a slot guy or someone who I think could take on a bigger role as well. And also you have Carson Ryan too, who's, in my opinion, probably their top transfer, who's coming in from Utah as well. And they can find a way to get him the ball, somebody who should be really exciting and a big playmaker for them. So, I just routed off a couple of names, but are there any other names that we should be on the lookout for in terms of BYU football this year?
Yeah, on the offensive side, what you mentioned, so Austin Collie comments a lot on the BYU receiver room. He was distraught that Chase Roberts didn't get the number of looks last year that he thinks he should. He thinks he should be a 1,000-yard receiver. The Chase Roberts should be a 1,000-yard receiver this year. I think so too. He can really bail a quarterback out, and he's one of those receivers where you throw it in his vicinity, he's going to go get it. And I love that about guys. If it's close to him, he's going to go get that ball. There was a play last year, frankly, and I don't want to I don't want to poo-poo on anybody, but there was a game. There was a throw that Retzlaff made at the end of the Arizona State game, right towards the end of that game, where he threw a deep out down the left-hand side, where the receiver, in my opinion, could have gotten it. If that was thrown to Chase, that's BYU with the ball with a minute left in the game, and at the 3-yard line,
Right.
And less than a touchdown, and only a couple points down from Arizona State. So having a guy who goes and gets the ball, man, I love that, and that's Chase. You mentioned Parker Kingston. He's got a lot of speed, and he's the best golfer on the team. But he's got a lot of speed. Probably going to be punt returning and possibly kickoff returning. But there's some others too that are really good in that room. JoJo Phillips is an excellent receiver. They should have probably a breakout year this year. 6'4", fast, big kid. There's a Nakua on that team this year that people have been looking for. So Puka Nakua's youngest brother, Ty Nakua, is on that team. He redshirted last year as a freshman. They're hoping to have big ideas for him for this year. I'm looking forward to that. I mean, every Nakua that's come through there has been fabulous. Samson and Kai and Puka have been amazing players, and this Nakua brother sounds like he could be the best of the lot. So that gives me I'm excited about that. But Cody Hagan also is in the receiving room, very good. So that should, the receiving room, the receivers are really good. That should be a stacked room. BYU has a lot of stacked rooms on the offense. Tight end, I'm excited to finally get the tight end work back. Carson Ryan back there from Utah. BYU loves the tight end. We as BYU fans, we love throwing the ball to the tight end from good lands. Back when Mark Wilson and Gifford Nielsen and Jim McMahon and Steve Young were dumping the ball into the tight end, and the tight end was just running people over. We love that. That is BYU football. And if we can get back to that'd be fabulous. Since Isaac Rex broke his ankle there against USC a few years back, we haven't really had the tight end room that we'd hoped for, and the kind of tight end production. Carson Ryan could be that, and I'm hoping he is that. He got a lot of good pub out of spring ball. They were really, really excited about him after spring. He's been a great leader for the team. I'm really excited about Carson Ryan and the rest, and some of those other tight ends. We've got great tight ends coming in the future. We've got some great tight end recruits that over the next 2 or 3 or 4 years really should bring that tight end position back for BYU, and that's been a savior for the BYU football team. We love that tight end position, and so it's been frustrating for a lot of us when I'm like, throw the ball to the tight end already, bring him across the field and throw that ball to him, let him run people over. But having the tight end play, looking forward to it.
That's the one thing I think I've always given Sitake and BYU a lot of credit for, regardless of whether, or even, Brock Mendenhall too, back in the early 2010s, whether they were an independent or, whatever situation that they were in, they were always really consistent, always developing really well, and most importantly, just kind of instilling that culture too. And you see that all across the football field too, even with LJ Martin too, their running back, who I would imagine is going to be utilized even more this season. And also an offensive line who by no means are a bunch of slackers or anything like that. I think they're pretty solid, very well-rounded. And I think whoever ends up starting at quarterback, I think is going to be okay in terms of pass protection, even though ideally I think their BYU is going to try to be creative in terms of how to get that going even more, assuming that the mistakes don't pile up like they almost did last season.
Carry the ball. But like that running back room, LJ Martin this year should have a breakout year. I'm expecting him to go over 1,000 yards. They've got a couple players. Sione Moa, running back there. I mean, he's just I think 5'8", 5'9". He just like thighs and legs that are just running folks over. You saw him play a couple games last year. He's a young player, got injured, but the games he played, man, it was just like I'm like, bring him back healthy after an off season, and with LJ being fast and quick, and Sione Moa running folks over, and Hawanga and Rapati's back this year also. That running back room should be very, very good, and the offensive line is where it all starts. And the offensive line, Right now there's some question marks, but they have the ability and they have the potential to be really good offensive line, very good offensive line. They've got serious depth on that line. They've got a lot, like I said, on a lot of these positions. So a lot of people talk. If I could just a couple things. A lot of people talk about BYU and BYU across the country, and where do they stand on stuff. BYU has pretty much always or very regularly had one or two deep of players that can play with anybody in the country. So if you stack BYU up against almost anybody, they can play with them if it's their first or second stringers because of the conferences they've been in and the independent, that kind of stuff. It really hurt the depth. Right now, though, BYU's got more depth than they've ever had before. So you've got ones and twos, which are good and have some good solid college football players. But now you've got the threes and the fours and fives and people young kids and people pushing those ones and twos. But you've got some depth where you can handle some injuries. If you look at that first year when they were in the Big 12, they didn't have that depth build up. And if you look at their first 7 games, they were 5-2. But then they started losing guys. About game 4 and 5 and 6, they started losing guy here, guy there, guy here, the guy there. They started losing some guys, and by the time they got into game 6 and 7 and 8, they lost their last 5 because the depth, they were just depleted. It really hurt them. And they brought in a bunch of new guys and stuff through transfer portal. But BYU now has gotten, because they're a Power 4 team now, they've been able to recruit in such a way and keep guys here in such a way that they're able to build that depth. And so that offensive line is a good example. They've got eight or 9 really good, solid players, and they could go even 10 and 11 deep on that offensive line. And that's huge. That's huge for them.
Yeah, I'll even throw a shout out to Ryder Lyons real quick too. The 5-star kid they got from California, who, at least in the modern recruiting era, is probably the best recruit that they've gotten in a really long time. So I think that's also another kid that they should be really excited about, and also just speaks in terms of exactly what you mentioned too about this BYU program and exactly why they've been successful for the past decade relatively consistently, even with the Big 12 move.
Yeah, we're real excited about a bunch of our recruits this year. Utah's not. But yeah, you got the Brock Harris and some of these other kids there. Really, it's a good year. It's a good year to be a BYU fan. And that's one of the arguments I'd have with my I won't name names, but people I know who are closely related to me about the BYU and the Utah rivalry. The Utah would get recruits, the BYU didn't, and they're like, because Utah's so much better. Well, no, it's because Utah was in the Pac-12 and BYU was independent.
Right.
Just wait till BYU gets a chance, because these in-state kids and these LDS kids of the Church of God Latter-day Saints, they're gonna start picking BYU, and that's got Utah right now. That's got Utah freaking out a bit, because there's 4 or 5 of these guys on BYU's team who are natural BYU fits, but would choose Utah a lot of times because of the conference they were playing in and the perceived opportunities that existed that they didn't think existed at BYU so much. So the recruiting, we're very excited about the recruiting battles. I mean, BYU, we as BYU fans, we think pretty highly of that team, and we think, look at what we've been able to do with 2.5, 3-star kids. We've been able to put out top 25 teams on a regular basis and win in double-digit wins, and imagine what they can do if they just keep that same mindset and that same go-get-it attitude down there, what they can do with 4- and 5-star kids. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, definitely just kind of makes you wonder, definitely makes you excited too, which I guess is a good segue into talking about the defense a little bit, because at least in my opinion, Jay Hill is one of those defensive coordinators I don't really think ever gets a lot of credit, especially on a national stage. And you can kind of see what BYU has done, particularly on the defensive line, which, I guess for me, I'm always excited to talk about the defensive line, just guys who can, generate pressure, get turnovers, and most importantly, just, any team where they can kind of rely on that. And especially it's going to be a lot more helpful too, since they can hopefully alleviate some pressure off the quarterback as well. And, with that said, at least in 2024 compared to 2023 and years past. I mean, they've done a really phenomenal job at, creating turnovers too and getting to the quarterback. 22 interceptions last year, which is tied for almost
one. Yeah.
Almost the highest aside from Texas too. So, I mean, with that said, who are some guys in at least the defensive line and linebacker room, this kind of front seven that everybody should kind of keep their eyes out for, and somebody who I think, or even just guys who you think could be an X factor for him this season?
Yeah, that defensive line, I'm excited about it. Last year, so Jay Hill you're right. I'm not going to say this very many times because I don't want people to know it. But Jay Hill is one of the best coaches in the country. I mean, he is fabulous. Now, that does not mean anybody should come and try to get Jay Hill away from BYU. They should be content leaving him right there because I want him to stay because Jay Hill is great. And just as an example, I mean, he was great when he was at University of Utah, right? When you think about University of Utah's, some of those great defensive lines right up there at the U, those were because of Jay Hill. And then he went to Weber State and had some great seasons over there at Weber. Then Kalani got him to come down there to BYU with him. So he is fabulous. And so last year, just to give a little bit of perspective, last year BYU's defensive line has had some issues for the last number of years. Last year they had to convert some folks and move some people around to different positions within that defensive line. They had a really solid year. They had a great year. But none of those guys were true defensive tackles. So they had edges in there playing defensive tackle and that kind of stuff. They had to bulk them up. But this year they've got natural defensive tackles. Keanu Tanavasa, who transferred down from Utah, and I've got the name here. So it's the transfer Kirkland, the transfer from Oklahoma State.
Kirkland, that's it.
Those two on that interior, the interior of that defensive line. This is the first year since Jay Hill's been at BYU where he's got the defensive line players that are his kind of defensive line players. So when you hear me say that, think of those Utah players that just wreak havoc and wreaked havoc throughout football, and also went to the NFL. Those were some good NFL players too. This is the first year where he's got those kinds of guys. So BYU's defense was a top 20 defense in the nation last year without that benefit on the defensive line and those, especially the tackles. They had some really good edge players that disrupted and caused a lot of problems. They had really good they did some great job last year on the interior for what they were. But this year, these guys are built for it now. These are natural defensive tackles. And so that's really exciting on what they can do. Last year, they didn't have the sacks that we would hope for, but they disrupted and they caused problems. But like you said, they generated a bunch of interceptions. They tied Texas for the 22 interceptions, and Texas had two more games than BYU did. But yet they still tied them for the number of interceptions. Give BYU another couple games, they would have another couple, 2 or 3 in picks. They were that good. So that defensive front is really, really good this year. And like I said before, they've got depth. They've got depth at each of these positions now, out on the edge and in the interior of that defensive line. But Tanavasa is really the one to look for. There are some legitimate NFL players on that defensive side of the ball this year. It's the line. Tanavasa probably will declare for the NFL next year. I'd love to have him come back, but I think he's got 1 year after this, maybe a senior. But the linebackers are really BYU's linebacking core could be. I mean, I think it's currently a top 5-6 linebacking core in the country currently, and they could be. And I hate to say they're going to be the best, but they could be right up there, top 2 or 3 linebacking core in the company if they can stay healthy, because those linebackers are nothing short of spectacular. They're just really, really good. Jack Kelly in there, and they had we lost a transfer out of the linebacking core, and a bunch of people put Harrison Taggart. A bunch of people put were like, oh no, BYU lost this linebacker. Well, the likelihood is that Harrison Taggart was going to lose his job to Siali Acera.
Right.
Siali Acera had an amazing performance there in the Alamo Bowl, and we've been waiting for him. And he runs like Glasker. So Isaiah Glasker, Siali Acera, and Jack Kelly are likely your 3 main linebackers there. And there's a ton of depth behind them with Ace Kafusi and a number of other players back there. Depth on that linebacking core, but it was likely They told Harrison Taggart, from what I heard, I wasn't in the room, but from what I heard, they told Harrison Taggart that it was a 1A, 1B kind of situation with him and Cialia Serra, and then he decided to transfer. People thought, oh, no, we've lost this really good linebacker, and he is a really good linebacker. But I think he saw the writing was on the wall that Cialia Serra is going to be a great linebacker. BYU is, to us as BYU fans, hopefully I speak for enough of us, but as BYU fans, there's three positions that really have defined BYU football over the years: linebacker, offensive line, and quarterback are the three that where we've put people in the NFL. Right now, we've got from BYU, we've got what I believe to be the best linebacker in the NFL, and when Kyle Van Noy was at BYU, Fred Warner is at BYU. These current linebackers are of that mold. Jack Kelly's a little bit smaller, but Glasgow and Cialia Serra are right. I mean, they're like, when you think of BYU linebackers and you think of Fred Warner and you think of Kyle Van Noy and just guys dominating a game and taking over. Now, Kelly, don't get me wrong, Jack Kelly's going to play on Sundays, but those guys are like that, and there's three of them now, and there's others behind them. That BYU linebacking room has the potential to just knock people out. They are really, really good. And interestingly enough, BYU had, so BYU talk about BYU offense. BYU scored like 8-9 touchdowns other than offensive touchdowns last year.
That's the figure. I have 8 or 9. Yeah,
6 and scoop sixes and all these different. I mean, it's like BYU scoring every single way. I think Retzlaff was frustrated because he's like, "You guys are taking all my touchdowns. Stop doing that." And so he, but you've got Isaiah Glasgow, Cialia Serra, Jack Kelly as your defensive linebackers, and man, they are good. Isaiah Glasgow, just watch out for him this year. I mean, he's a Fred Warner type, Kyle Van Noy type player, and I mean, where he's going to be scoring, he's going to be sacks, scores, just disrupting, dropping into coverage. He's just, and so is Jack Kelly, but then so is Cialia Serra. I'm very excited about that. You can't tell. I'm waiting to see the linebackers at BYU. We love great defensive play, and there's been a lot of great linebackers come from BYU, and it's exciting to see them. So we've had some very solid defensive line play, but when we get a great defensive line combined with that kind of linebacker crew, but that's why we had so many interceptions last year. Those linebackers were so disruptive. But with a better defensive line, which I think we will be this year, have a lot better defensive line. And then the linebackers are just going to be. I mean, they're, again, I don't think it's overstating it that they're likely a top 3 or 4 linebacker crew in the country.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's definitely a great point too, because I mean, you mentioned a couple of those transfers coming in. You talked about Jack Kelly, you talked about Isaiah Glasgow, and also Kirkland, the transfer from Oklahoma State. A bunch of solid depth at the defensive line for the first time in a while too, and it seems like everything's kind of coming together too. And this kind of wrap this up and talk about their schedule too. But when you look at this BYU schedule, I mean, I definitely think there's a realistic shot they can contend for the Big 12. I mean, it's, at least in my opinion, one of the best things about covering the Big 12 is the fact that it's so unpredictable every single season. Last year, I thought it was going to be between Utah and Oklahoma State, and I was dead wrong. And, it kind of falls under that umbrella. But now you look at this BYU schedule for 2025, and there are definitely a couple games that at least intrigued me. I look at the September 27th matchup when they go on the road versus Colorado. And I think also this November 8th game at Texas Tech is going to be really telling in terms of where BYU is as a football program, because they're going to have a lot of tests on the road this year, even Iowa State October 25th too. So when you look at this schedule, are there any other games that kind of stick out to you, or one of those games that I kind of just routed off that you kind of say to yourself, hey, this one of these games to kind of define our season, or this could be one of those games that kind of ends up being the hamster wheel of success or a downfall if it doesn't go well?
Yeah, a couple thoughts there. I'm happy that we're getting Colorado early in the season. Now, playing at Colorado at a night game, that's going to be a heck of an environment, and there's a lot of BYU fans over there in the Denver area. So that'll be fun. That'll be very interesting to see that. I went to school over there in Denver, so I'm very familiar with Denver and the Boulder area. We'll see what that looks like. I expect BYU to beat them, but yeah, I hope that's the case. I guess
they're a wild card. They're a wild card team.
Yeah, it is. They could
don't
be.
Really affect them defensively.
Yeah, they could be coming into their own still and still trying to put stuff together from last year, and that's kind of where I hope they're at, and not knocking people around yet, because I have a lot of confidence in Prime and the coaching staff he's put together over there. But Colorado, yeah, that's something to look to there. But there's those 4 games right in the middle of the season, which is going to determine what BYU is going to do this year. So University of Utah, I mean, it's the Holy War, and that game takes everything out of everybody every single year. It's at LaVell Edwards Stadium this year, which is great. So we'll see what happens, but you can never chalk that up. Even if you're the team that's killing them every year and you're so much better, the other team is going to come in and it's going to be a dogfight. You can just always count on that. And Whittingham is not happy with what happened last year, and we'll see what that ends up being. The biggest problem though, frankly, is after the Holy War, you go out to Iowa State. And if you look at BYU and Utah and you look at their records for the last umpteen years, the game, if they don't play the Holy War as the last game of the season, if that's played during the season, the next game those teams play, they lose them very regularly because there's so much taken out of them in the Holy War. So going out to Iowa State, which I'm guessing is probably going to be a night game, and that crowd's going to be excited. If I think it's going to happen, what's going to happen with BYU and their record, but that's tough. It's tough to recover from that Holy War experience. It's just a different animal, and to have it right in the middle of the season is rough. So Iowa State's going to be a tough game. At least they get a week off then before they go down to Texas Tech. So they've got Utah, they got Iowa State, they get a week off, and they got that bye, and then they go down to Texas Tech. We'll see where they are. I fully expect they're going to lose one or both of those road games. Because they're tough. Those are tough environments. Those are teams that are looking out for BYU. BYU and Texas Tech had a little bit of an incident there a couple of years back, if you remember that.
Yeah, I remember that.
A spinning incident in one of the Texas Tech on BYU face kind of thing. So there was some bad blood already generated, and we'll see if that happens, if that keeps going or not. But a night game in Lubbock, and then they come back from Lubbock, and then they play TCU at home. TCU could be very, very good this year. So those 4 games in a row will determine, I think, where BYU is going to be for this season. I'm hoping they can get at least a 2-2 out of that. 3-1, it means they're likely going to be in the championship game. But 2-2 out of there. But boy, you could go 0-4 depending on if things don't go right, because you can always lose the Holy War. You can always lose the rivalry game. Always, no matter who you are. In that game, you can lose it. Then at Iowa State, at Texas Tech, if you get beat up and you're kind of running low on stuff, you could see TCU come in here and beat the Cougars at LaVell Edwards. BYU doesn't lose LaVell Edwards very often, so that crowd might get them through if that kind of case happens. But yeah, you can see those 4 games could be very, very tough.
Yeah, because they're definitely going to be tested on the road this year too. So I definitely anticipate them maximizing those home games as well. And also, like you said before, it's great that they have the Holy War at home as well. And at least for the most part, outside of that, the schedule is somewhat manageable too. I mean, the conference games, you have Portland State, you have Stanford, a couple, and I think one or two other teams I don't remember off the top of my head. But in any event, though, it's definitely you can definitely see just a lot of positives going BYU's way. It just seems like more or less, hey, can the quarterback room kind of come together, and how much stronger is this defense, particularly the defensive line, gonna be this coming season? Which based off what I've seen too, and what I've heard from talking with other people, even yourself too, that there's a lot to be excited about.